Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. All right, I'm here today with Professor Lindsay Tedds from the University of Calgary, and I figured that because there's been a lot of attention on childcare agreements with provinces in the last couple of weeks, we would talk about that and the economic case for it, because this is one of the central components to the government's feminist budget. Lindsay, I know this is a big passion for you, so let's talk about why early learning and childcare matters.
Early learning and childcare matters sort of from a three-pronged perspective is, first and foremost, in order for parents to work, to contribute to the economy in a way that is their choice, we need to have choice in early childhood education and childcare. And one of the areas where we continue to lack in being able to exercise that choice is in affordable, accessible, high quality early learning education and childcare spaces. We have several provinces that have moved on its own: British Columbia, Manitoba, Quebec, being some of the early movers in this area. And we already are reaping the economic benefits from that aspect. So this is about ensuring that parents can, participate in the economy according to least opportunity costs, which is, the fundamental principles of economics, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the aspect of early learning, childhood education, and childcare is a highly skilled economic sector that is dominated by women. Early childhood educators have university degrees. And because we have a lack of infrastructure, we have an entire economic sector here of people willing, able, and skilled to work in order to achieve those outcomes. And there's just not enough space. There's not enough provision for them. So we're losing out on a growth of an entire sector that predominantly hires women, and women hard hit by the pandemic are looking for these kinds of options to go back into. The downside is when you don't focus on quality, the pay scale does not align with the skills of these individuals with a university education, and then we don't get the cognitive benefits to the children of early childhood education. It's really important that people really understand this is early childhood education with childcare, not the other way around or without that cognitive development. And there's been oodles of studies over and over and over again showing how important these early interventions are in brain development in children that are our future human capital.
Yeah.
So it's this both short, medium, long-term reaping massive economic benefits. And, the fact that nobody sees this, or at least there's this contingent of people who don't see this as economic infrastructure, is all about the patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
This is a sector that is highly needed by women, and God forbid we actually be able to exercise our choices and be able to participate in the economy as we choose.
Yeah, and something that kind of strikes me in what you're talking about there is the early learning component of it, because we mostly just boil this down to daycare, and there's more to it than that. And I think that's something that is not really appreciated enough in terms of what's being discussed.
I agree, and that's why I've been over the last number of years, I've been ensuring that I use early childhood education, because when you continue to use the word childcare, everybody just thinks babysitting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, kids' brains are too important to just, have somebody. I mean, you're not just sticking them in like the basement or in the closet, as my husband threatens my son to do. Lock them in the closet. This is not what's going on. There's a lot of both brain development and social skills to get them school-aged ready. And the more they're able to be ready for school, particularly on the social side, and especially in these days in school where we're not allowed to touch each other, a lot of these social skills are really, really, really important, and ensure that then teachers who also have university degrees are focusing in on what they should be. And so this other stuff has in fact been dealt with. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Yeah. And another thing that I think is not really been appreciated in the conversation, particularly from certain provincial governments when they're talking about choice in childcare, and a certain federal party as well, is the notion of constrained choice. And I know this is something that you like to talk about a lot. And let's just spell that out for people.
Yeah, I mean, so in economics, what we want to be able to do is for people to be they have their aspects that they can choose from, and they just freely choose, right? I can pick A, somebody else can pick B, and you can pick C. But because we have the lack, like there's a lack of space, right? And this is in my neighborhood. We have to go 5 kilometers to find the closest early childhood. Oh God, now I can't speak. Early childhood education provider, right? We have to understand there's these aspects of accessible, affordable, and what have you. So, but one of the things that we have right now is that because the sticker price is so high, and some people like when I worry we focus too much on the monthly costs, because over the life of a child, and anybody can appreciate, I keep spreadsheets. I know how much we have spent on my son. It's $100,000 to get him to school. That's how much we have spent on child. Now, I have been able, and my husband has been able to work. We have been able, we are productive citizens. We pay our taxes and all of that kind of stuff. So there is a benefit, but that's a high cost. And for whatever reason, we seem to be able to go, yeah, we should make sure that people can afford housing. Well, we could have afforded better housing had we not had to spend so much on early childhood education. So, we really got to understand how linked these things are. And that sticker price is because that sticker price prevents people from accessing that childcare, because for a lot of women, that sticker price is the income that they would earn in the workforce. And our current provisions only allow for us to be able to get either monthly subsidies that don't offset the whole cost. But interestingly enough, all daycare providers that qualify for the subsidy increase the prices so that there isn't, in fact, the same benefit that you think there is. Yeah. Or we have tax credits that we don't get.
Are in love with.
Which they are totally in love with. And so you don't get the benefit. That's the CCED, child care expense deduction. You don't get that for another 18 months. But there's all of these constraints on that CCED, which it has to be claimed by the lowest income spouse. Well, my husband's an entrepreneur. He spent most of the early years of P's life with zero income as he was building his business, which meant we were unable to derive any offset from those childcare expenses because of an embedded assumption, because of the gendered nature of our tax system that assumes that a zero earning spouse is not working and therefore is not worthy of accessing childcare. So it's a system that is completely broken. It was set up like in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. 70s, completely different economic world and with completely different understandings of these issues. And yet we need to tackle these things and we need to take them head on. But choice includes accessible, affordable childcare spaces. It also includes an ability, particularly for parents of kids with disabilities, severe disabilities. A childcare space is not what they need. They probably need one-on-one. And so we still we need all of these things in place in order for parents to have true choice.
Right. And the other thing that kind of occurs to me is when we're talking about the high sticker cost, as well as constrained choice, is that this is really a supply side problem. There's not enough supply, therefore the price goes up, and therefore there's not enough choice available. And This is why we need government intervention in this particular market situation.
There's a complete market failure here in early childhood education. And it's not as simple as, there's a proposal out there as you give parents a voucher and they go down to their local childcare provider and they'll open up a spot for them. Well, that's not how it works, right? There's regulations that ensure the safety of children. And so you can't just add one kid. Adding one kid often means adding a staff. It also means adding maybe 50 to 100 square feet of outdoor space. It means different safety provisions if they exceed a certain capacity. It's not as simple as I just go down there and say, hey, I'm ready for my spot, make it so. Even zoning, right, perhaps prevents the expansion of child care spaces. And then you can say, oh, we should get rid of all of that. But all of that is in place to ensure high quality, safe early childhood education and child care. So we really have to make sure that we fully understand this sector before we think there's a one size fits all. It's almost like a guaranteed basic income, Dale, that a one size fits all approach maybe is not the best approach to solving problems.
And I guess one of the things that occurs to me also when we're talking about this one size fits all issue is that the federal approach in the current situation is about creating guidelines or principles that these spaces should adhere to rather than a basically, here's the box ticking exercise. This is how it's got to roll out across the country. It seems to me that because they are doing this in a manner that is simply basing the funding off of these principles, that this is giving some more flexibility to provinces to enable them to create spaces that meet different situations.
Yeah, I mean, we have a fair understanding of certain conditions that have to be put in place, but then there is room. This is why it's 13 bilateral agreements. And that is because there is room for variation, and it's going to depend on your population as well as what the problem is within the province, as well as what objectives each one is trying to achieve, right? I mean, BC was an easy one for them to sign. They signed first and foremost because they already had not only rolling out their own $10 a day program, which for advocates was slower than they had wanted. And that's because it's more complicated than it looks. But one of the factors in BC that leads to high costs is lease space. So, right. And so there you have to have sort of a different understanding of where the costs are going to go. As well, in BC, their minister responsible for early childhood education is in the Ministry of Education, which then allows for actually an easier and smoother allocation of the quality from a cognitive early childhood education development. Nova Scotia was in the exact same place as that, right? Their minister is in the Minister of Education. And so it just smooths because they've already bought in to this being about human skill development.
Yeah.
PEI is rumored to be imminent, according to the CBC. All these leaks and what have you.
Yeah.
And yeah, we expect to see over the next couple of weeks, probably the majority of provinces, not including the prairies, to have signed on agreement. And that is good. That is, everybody's talking about the writ being dropped. I mean, I've got no inside information or anything like that, but it is clear this is a strategy going into a potential election, and kudos to them, because when we fought that election with Paul Martin and was that Stephen Harper?
That was Stephen Harper.
Okay. He had signed agreements, but not announced. And so that was a strategy, I believe, that this government is taking to heart. We're going to get all of this stuff in place and a commitment so parents can see this is real, not like the last time.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that we'll kind of end on this note of we've got some recalcitrant provinces who are kind of balking at this notion, either for ideological reasons or this notion about choice. And I guess we'll just kind of end on making what is, the economic case as to why this is so important, and why it really there should not be, it should be a no-brainer as to why the path forward.
We know. So one of the things that you have to do, like, there's a lot of evidence out there, and I see everybody wants to use the evidence in their own way. So each province, we have different arguments and different rationalizations. Here in Alberta, we have the lowest labor force participation amongst women of childbearing age, and the lowest labor force participation of women with children under 6. This is exactly the situation that Quebec went into the early childhood education program in 1996. They now have the highest labor force participation of women of childbearing age and women of children under 6. And they have reaped, for every dollar they have invested into the program, they get $1.04 back, and the federal government gets $1.40. So, and this is real. This isn't the impact analysis of, the hokey sort of economic benefits. This is tax revenues accruing to the province. So Jason Kenney just said yesterday, Alberta could have what Quebec does. Yeah, Alberta could have what Quebec does. There's a reason why Quebec is running a surplus, and it's not because of equalization. They have grown their economy significantly over the last 20 years. And this has allowed them to accrue that surplus, which has allowed them to expand their social safety net. So yeah, this is not intangible benefits. These are tangible benefits right to governments.
Yeah, and I think we also always need to remember that this is not Alberta signing a check to Quebec that then puts that into the childcare system. It is Quebecers pay high taxes that allows for this childcare system to be subsidized, which is accruing economic benefits.
Exactly. I tweeted out yesterday the tax schedule for Quebec, and yeah, Alberta could have that too. I mean, this isn't about them getting equalization as the only reason why they have childcare. It isn't. They pay high taxes, and they actually have a very robust social support network, the best in Canada. And this has led to significant economic growth. It took a few years.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And it was such a great talk. And hopefully we'll do this again in the future.
You betcha. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at journo_Dale on Twitter. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.